Welcome back, guys. It's craft time. Let's go ahead and get started. In today's video, we are going to be making a Valentine's Day door hanger. I had an order for a Valentine's Day door hanger and it came with my favorite clause of creative freedom. So she said she trusts my judgment and my style, kind of sent me a few inspo pics and just let me do my thing. So I have these 12-inch wood rounds. I got mine from Amazon, but you can find these at some Dollar Trees or your local craft stores. I do have mine linked in the affiliate links if you're interested. And then I also have these little wooden hearts that I picked up from my local Dollar Tree. I am going to start by giving everything a nice coat of paint of white. So I'm going to use white as my base for my sign color, and then I'm going to use white as the base for the color on several of these hearts because I want the colors to be more of a true color. What's going to happen is that raw wood is going to soak in this first base paint, and then it's going to make my next layer of paint go on a little easier and look a little better. And then along with that, I do want to take two of these and make the base coat a dark color, as in black. That way, whenever I paint it on, it just kind of changes the shade of the color a little bit and just, I don't know, adds a little bit of a different color and dimension once we put this all together. And I did go ahead and make sure that I had all of the sides painted as well as the back of each piece, because when I lay these out, they're probably going to go over the side a little bit. And if you see it from the back, I want to make sure that it doesn't look super incomplete, especially since I am selling this to someone else. From there, I'm going to start painting the surfaces. I'm going to be using red tones and then like a dark pink tone. So I'm just going to give several coats of this. I'm going to do a coat, let it dry, do a coat, let it dry on each of these. So I'm going to take red over the two black pieces, and then what I'm going to do is mix that red with a darker pink. I think it's called magenta. The colors that I'm using are acrylic, but the white base and the black base that I used were chalk paint. I don't think it matters, but I just thought I'd let you know. So I did mix up the red and pink together to create my own tone because I didn't want a bright pink. I'm not really like a pink Valentine girl. I'm more of a red Valentine girl. So I wanted to change that tone up a little bit, darken it, and just get a nice coat of paint on here. From there, like I said, I did paint the backs of these with the colors as well. And then I'm going to start working on the sign. Now what I did was go ahead and coat the sign in polyacrylic. That way once I do add my tape, even though it's painter's tape, just to make sure it doesn't peel up the paint that I have gone ahead and done on the sign. So I added my painter's tape, just kind of eyeballing it, and I'm just going to do a few lines. Now I'm going to use that same color that I mixed up as the line here. And then I'm going to be using the red for the bottom half of it. I just wanted to bring both of those colors together in for the sign. And then from there, we're going to let it dry. And then I'm going to go ahead and do a second coat on both of these. And I wanted to make sure I let it dry really well. That way, whenever I go to do the next parts, I'm not pulling up the paint or causing any issues for myself. So while I was doing this, I was touching back down here on these hearts. Like I said, especially for the black, I had to do several coats. That way that they were covered really well and gave it the shade that I was looking for. And then once that was nice and dry, I was ready to peel off this painter's tape. Now, if you're using masking tape, you can use a heat gun and kind of heat it up, and it might help you pull that off a little bit better without worrying about there being paint pulled off with it. But this painter's tape went really well, especially with me having it sealed, that I did not have an issue with that. Now I will say I did have some bleeding, which wasn't the end of the world because I did plan on using my gold pen to kind of bring in another element here, some dimension and some shine to this piece. So it just kind of worked out that I could use it to outline the lines that I created and hide kind of those messy edges from where it did bleed underneath the painter's tape. What you can do to avoid this if you don't plan on cleaning up the lines like I am here is you can go down with a base along the tape lines with a clear or the color of your base paint, which would have been white. That way any of the bleeding would have matched the background and you wouldn't have been able to tell. So now I'm going to just start working on all of the detail. I am taking some of that white chalk paint from the base and I'm just kind of dry brushing it onto the two darker hearts just to kind of lighten them up. And then I'm going to be using that gold Krylon gold leafing pen to kind of hit the edges of all of the hearts. There's 3 of them that are the same shape, to go ahead and bring that pop of gold from there. And then off camera I did add some gold polka dots onto the sign just to give it a little more character as well. Once I was done with those, I went ahead and did a polyacrylic coat on the front and back of all of the hearts, as well as front and back of the sign. The reason I went ahead and did the polyacrylic on the front of the sign is because I'm going to be adding a stencil, and just in case the stencil sticks too much, I want to make sure that when it pulls off, it's not pulling my paint. So if it does pull, it will be pulling that polyacrylic layer. Here you see I just pulled from the Cricut images. I am a Cricut subscriber, so I was able to go ahead and get this image off of there that I did just resize and stretch to my needs, and I cut it out for a stencil using Dollar Tree vinyl. If it's not a super small or detailed image or wording, the Dollar Tree vinyl works really well for me on the washi tape setting, and it's a really cheap way to use a stencil without breaking the bank. So here you just see me going ahead and getting it all ready. I reverse weeded it, and I am using contact paper as my transfer tape, mostly because I couldn't find mine, but this works really well. It doesn't stick super strong, so I know it will release this vinyl really well without causing me any issues. And I did just kind of eyeball it, but if you aren't comfortable with that, just measure it, get out a ruler or tape measure to kind of give you a guideline. I did, like I said, eyeball it, and now I'm going to be stenciling it on. I am using polyacrylic here, but you can use Mod Podge or any other like clear paint that you have, or if you don't have a multicolor background like me and you just have like just a white base, you can use whatever color your base is. And what this is going to do is, like I was saying earlier with the tape lines, it's going to catch any of that bleeding that's going to happen where the stencil may not be pushed down all the way, or where you may get a little bit too much paint, and you won't see that bleeding because I used clear paint, or if you used a color the same as your background, you won't be able to tell. So once that's dry, I'm going in with the color that I want to use, and I'm just using this white chalk paint again, which is the same color as my background. Now what I like to do is dip my my brush in the paint and then offload it onto my stencil, and then I use circular motions to fill in the entire stencil. I typically do 2 coats of that, and what's happening is it's keeping the paint from like clumping up or overfilling in any place. And then on that third one, I don't have to worry about it bleeding any at all because I have now 3 layers of paint underneath it, so I can go ahead and follow like the shape of the letters and things without worrying about extra paint getting under. That way I know it has nice, good, full coverage. Now it's time to go ahead and peel off the transfer, which I like to do when the paint is still wet, just to make sure that it's not peeling any of that paint with it if it were to be dried. The only thing you need to be careful here is you see me touching it, that is wet paint on there, not to accidentally touch your sign with the wet paint on your fingertips and leave smudges or any marks on there. So I just set that aside, and I went ahead and weeded out those other parts again while it was still wet. This is whatever you're more comfortable with. Some people swear that you have to do it when it's dry. Again, this is what works best for me. So now you can see that it kind of blends in with the background, and so what I did was just take a Sharpie and I traced it, and I added a couple of black lines and a couple of black details to the hearts to kind of pull it all together. I didn't film it because that was a very detailed moment, and I needed to be really up close and personal with it, and I just didn't want to show you a big old shot of my forehead or the back of my head. So that's all I did with that, and now I'm just kind of laying it out, finding out the layout that I want to use, and I'm going to be attaching these with some Gorilla Glue, the gel version, and some hot glue. The hot glue for an immediate hold, and the super glue for a permanent hold, and this will be between a screen door in their front door, so it won't be exposed to the elements. So this should hold just fine without any issues. And what I'm doing is I'm going ahead and gluing them together in the layout that I want. And then once that's set, I'm going to then glue the entire thing as one piece to the sign. And I'm just going to do that, and I'm going to use just these little pink clips that also picked up from the Dollar Tree to kind of hold it in place. That way I know it's secure and it's not going to go anywhere, and it has a really good hold to the sign. And I'm going to let that sit overnight. And then once I was done with this left side setup, I did go ahead and do the top two hearts as well, the same exact way. I kind of laid them out how I wanted them to be, glued them together, and then I glued them down. From here, all that's left is to add a ribbon hanger, so I'm going with red to match the rest of the sign, and I'm just going to push it through the loop, pull it around the back, and then back through to the front. This is going to keep that ribbon across, touching the sign across in the back, and then I'm just going to tie it together. Now you can see it goes over my heart there. If you didn't want that to happen, I would have just added the ribbon before I attached those. This doesn't bother me or the person that I'm giving it to, so I went ahead and carried on with what I'm doing, but I could have added the ribbon first and then just glued the heart down over top of it. Now I'm just going to make a cute little bow. I just kind of laid the ribbon out to see what length I wanted it to be, and I picked out several colors that coordinated well with the sign, and I'm just going to cut them out to the different lengths that I need. The bigger ribbon that I start with is going to be just a little bit longer, and as I cut the ribbons that will be on the top and in the front, they're going to get a little shorter. From there, I did go ahead and cut out a little triangle to give it that cute little ribbon feel. I can't remember what this is called, but basically you just fold the two edges together. You start in the folded, like I like to start where it's folded in the center and cut at a diagonal towards the tip of the two edges, and I just kind of eyeball it to get it to be symmetrical on each side, and I'm just going to do that with each and every one of these ribbons that I cut out. And then you can see here I'm just folding over the wire. Sometimes that wire pulls out of the ribbon, so I just slightly fold it over to keep it in place. That way I don't have any issues with it in the future. Once I get those all cut out, I am just going to be layering them. I like to just lay them in like an X pattern, so I'll start with my biggest ribbon that I want in the back. I'll lay it in an X, the shape of an X, and then I grab the next ribbon that I want in front of that, again repeating that same pattern all the way up into when I get into the front ribbons. From there, you're going to want to grab something to wire it together. I'm going to be using floral wire. You can use a pipe cleaner, you can even use another piece of ribbon, but for me I'm just going to use this thin floral wire. I'm going to wrap it around twice and then twist it in the back. I am going to be leaving a tail of that wire on there, and the purpose of that is so that I can wire it to the ribbon hanger. So again, I'm going to wrap it around twice, wire it down, and then you're going to see, I like to use wired ribbon because then you can move it and adjust it how you want. So I'm just going to fluff those little tails out in the directions that I want, and they'll hold because they are wired ribbon. And then I'm going to use the tail that I left on that wire that I used to hold it all together to attach it to that ribbon. I'm going to be using the knot where I tied it, and that's going to give me, one, I'm going to hide it with that ribbon or with the bow, but then I'm also going to use it to keep the bow in place. That way it's just not sliding freely along the ribbon if it were to loosen at any point. And then I'm just going to position it to where I want. But I think this turned out super cute. She's super excited about it, so I think we can call that a win. Thank you guys so much for stopping in. Please let me know what you think about this in the comments below, and what would you have done with it? Where would you have placed the hearts? Would you have gone with a different color scheme? I would love to hear from you. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and consider subscribing to my channel. Would love to have you join me on this journey. I have big goals and big ideas for this year, and would love to be able to share that with you.